How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews. Back with some stacking casks from Kane Brewing. This is their blend number 6. This is their bourbon barrel aged barley wine finished in Oloroso sherry casks. Comes courtesy of my boy, Flash Gordon. Yeah, he is New Jersey brethren. He sent this to me today. I just did the unboxing. I don't know, 5 minutes ago. We're drinking it already. So, yeah, it's been sitting in my fridge all day, and I want something big. So here we go. We'll see what's what. I mean, Kane's barrel aging program is just absolutely fantastic. I love their stouts, but I think their barley wines are massively underrated. And you're talking about a sherry cask barley wine, you're kind of talking my speed. Label-wise, I actually really dig this. It's very similar to what they typically do with their labels as far as labeling and styling. Even texture-wise, it's a little bit more kind of linen. But there's something about the negative space on this with the stacking casks. I don't think their labels have been this kind of... What's the word I'm looking for? Classy? Maybe not classy, but well thought out. Because they've always been bold and big and rich. I mean, you talk about, here's some of their like original labels here. I don't know if they have any other ones out right now. They've been ever evolving. And while this is essentially the 3-color label, you know what I mean? Or 4. There's black on it. So there's a 4-color label, but it's just green and what's that, brown? I guess it's a gold and white and black, but not in a 4-color sense that there's full color on it. And just the way the negative space works on it, I actually think it's really, really well done. Beer wise, I mean, it looks the part of a barrel aged barley wine due to water brown, a little bit of kind of khaki colored, if not a little bit kind of malted malt ball colored head. I mean, Kane's barrel aging program, like I said, they are on top of it. I believe, spoiler alert, I believe their trick with their barrel aging program and how it works is they do a lot of barrel rotation. They don't worry about like refrigeration on a lot of their barrels, but they do like a lot of rotation. So you have a lot of the beer that just sits. If it's just sitting and not moving, I believe the temperature and rotation of the beer is where you take the barrel and not just move it from top of the rack to the bottom of the rack, but also rotate. Does a lot for the beer. That's my guess. That's why I think their stuff is really good. Or they're just really good at barrel aging and blending. So anyway, looks the goodness. Let's get a nose. You can get drunk off that nose because it's big and bold. You're talking about a 15% and change beer here. But it's so rich. It reminds me a lot of old school kind of brewery stuff. Brewery, when you're talking about like, the Black Tuesday and stuff like that, it's not essentially a stout. It's more old ale. It's more English barley wine. That's pretty much what I'm getting here. I'm getting a big vanilla coconut characteristic that's very much like subtly toasted. Rich but not overly sweetened. That barley wine portion of the show is just sugar daddy on top of subtle raisinette with a dollop of almost like white chocolate as opposed to like a rich over the top chocolate. And you're getting a heat to this. You're getting a punch to this. It's 15 plus. I expect that to be there. I'm not going to sit here and say it's hot. It's not. At least on the nose, it like singes the nostrils a little bit, but it's not like over the top, like, oh my god, like rocket fuel. But you're huffing something of substance. That smells really good, man. Really good. And when I say more importantly, that like the sherry cask in here, and the reason why I like sherry cask is because it's not as tannic, not as acidic, not as tart as most wines. Sherries tend to be a little bit sweeter, a little bit more kind of forgiving, I guess I would say, when it comes to melding and blending with a lot of different beers and stuff like that, like a lot of wine barrel aged stuff, whether it be, just from Chardonnay to Merlot, everywhere in between. It tends to be, the best way I can explain it is, it's never like, it can be the forefront of the nose. It can overpower a beer, but more often than not, there's a portion of the wine that overpowers the beer. Like, it'll be like, okay, I'm getting subtle kind of Chardonnay or Merlot notes, but it's that tart, acidic portion of the show from the Merlot that's really heavy-handed there. I get little of that when it comes to kind of sherry casks. It tends to be a little bit more kind of in tune with what beer is, I guess you would say. So it ends up melding a little bit better, and that's kind of the case we have here. It ends up being something a little bit more kind of in tune with the beer, to where it's not like over the top and heavy, but you get this fruity, jammy portion of the show, which has to be that sherry cask. So let's dive in. Cheers. It's very tasty. Like, very tasty. Not gonna lie to you. I expected a little bit more kind of electric to it. A little bit more pizzazz. Especially at 15%. And it is very much sherry forward. It actually reminds me a lot of, like, one of my favorite TV shows of all time is Frasier. And, a lot of times if they were, like, coming home from dinner or going out to dinner, they'd, it'd always be like, hey, you want a sherry? I think they switched to port at one point, but sherry was involved, or maybe it switched. Anyway. And you would always see them reach for, like, a crystal decanter that's sitting on a shelf. Not refrigerated. Not super cold. And just, like, pour, like, a little, like, like a half dram in and just kind of sip on that. And that's really what this reminds me of. Not as aggressive as what port typically comes off, or sherry typically comes off as. But it's very much those sherry vibes, and it's very much that kind of cordial, kind of like, let's sip on something before or after, as a aperitif or something after dinner. Is aperitifs before, right? If I mess that up, I'm sorry. As a precursor or a postcursor? No, we're just screwing everything up. Of like a cordial, a dessert, a appetizer, something along those lines. And that's kind of how this beer comes off, because it's a barley wine, It's rich. It has those toffee vibes, has those subtle raisinette vibes. And while that kind of sherry comes through, and it's kind of like not the leader in the clubhouse, but the playbook in which the beer kind of follows, and hopefully that makes sense to people, because the beer is still more than 50% of what you're experiencing, but that sherry is kind of the leader in the clubhouse as far as steering the way the direction of beer is going. It ends up being something that is a little bit more adulty, a little bit more less wowy, a little bit more reserved than what you'd expect from 15% barley wine. You're talking about 15 plus barrel aged. You expect kind of hair on fire stuff, and you're just not getting that here. Not a negative. I actually think this beer is quite tasty and delicious, but you have to approach it from that standpoint of thinking you're not expecting, okay, a huge boozy bomb of a aggressive barley wine. This is very much more reserved, very much more, let's pour this into 8 glasses and let's all sip this over a course of an hour, as opposed to let's all drink 2 ounces of this and move on to the next beer. Is that going to appeal to everybody? I don't know. But it appeals to me. And I think it's quite tasty. More than quite tasty. The more I drink it, the more I like it. Let's put it that way. And I fall into that kind of trap myself where I'm like, okay, it's a 15% barley wine. It's a sherry cask. Let's start the fucking show. You know what I mean? I'm expecting like a fucking... I was going to think of like a wrestling analogy. Might want to do like a power bomb. No, I don't know. Anything. Super fancy stuff. How about that? From the top rope, mind you. Okay, better. I'm not a big MMA guy, but I'm expecting like almost like a person to like run up onto the cage and do like a one punch knockout. what I'm getting here is a grappler who slowly entwines their opponent and ends up just putting the motherfucker to sleep. That's what this beer is. And it's probably, I didn't think about it to that extent because, like I said, I'm more of a boxing guy than an MMA guy, but this is more the grappler that just subtly and purposefully and meaningfully moves in moments to gain position, to just put someone to sleep. That's what this beer is. That's perfect. That's probably the best analogy I've thrown down on a beer in quite some time. It's tasty. It is very tasty. Back to the beer, so we can talk about actually what we're tasting as opposed to me throwing out kooky analogies. Perfect mouthfeel for a barley wine. Sherry is up front but not aggressive. Barley wine is there, not overly sweet, but it's sweet. It's barley wine, no shit Sherlock. It's more kind of taffy leaning into sugar daddy than it is more kind of raisinetty, but you get some of those tones throughout the whole thing. Like I said, that sherry is the driving force in the beer, but without being overly aggressive to take over the whole beer. Done and done. Is this one of the better barrel-aged barley wines that I've had as of late? Yes. Is it Mount Rushmore status? Outside looking in. I mean, it is worthy of being in there, but I've had someone said it was just means so much that that's why this is out. Not that it doesn't deserve it, but it's damn tasty. Value and availability on this thing. Oh, Jeff, let me know what you paid for this thing, man. And leave you with, if you like what, will you like this? If you like, sherry, port, and you like barley wines, and you like those two worlds that collide in a very, very slowly choked out sense, you'll like this. There you go. Review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you've had this, please let me know. Down there if you want to talk about it. There it is. Massive Beers, if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif, if you want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully enjoying a little bit of King right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.